Democrats have no vibe, and that's why they lose. My name is Hadia, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I wanted to talk about how the most diverse coalition in the United States also happens to have some of the blandest people representing them. So let's get into it.
Gotta have them ribs. And pussy too.
Out there, presidents are crook.
One of the things that prompted me to make this video is I watch a lot of Breaking Points and also secular talk, and one thing both Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske like to talk about is how this past election cycle was a vibes-based election. And I did kind of talk about the different vibes in one of my previous videos called Coconut Pilled versus Red Pilled, so if that's something you're interested in, definitely check it out. But one thing both Crystal and Kyle like to say is that Trump won because of his vibe. And I think this goes along very well with the notion that Americans are dumb. But there are tons of videos of people going out to Trump rallies and asking them why they voted for Donald Trump, and the answer is always the same, that he seems powerful, he seems tough, he seems like he's going to run this country like a business. But no one ever talks about any actual policies. It's all based on the vibe that Trump has curated for himself. Now, obviously, when I think of Donald Trump, I don't think of a strong or powerful man. If you ask me what he reminds me of, I don't want to say orange because that's overdone, but he does remind me of a big baby. He throws all of these temper tantrums, he seems really insecure, and he's not someone that I would want to be around. But for some reason, especially with men, he comes off as really appealing, and Andrew Schultz, a comedian, described this kind of perfectly.
And also, it's like the sides switched so much. You know, when I was younger, like, Democrats were cool. They were getting their dick sucked in the office. They were like, right? They were like supportive of like hip hop music. They said, do whatever you want. Like, we don't want to be in your bedroom. They were cool with gay people. Like, it was cool to be a Democrat. Now, conservatives got 3 baby mamas. The president got 3 baby mamas. He's getting pussy left and right. Right? He's cool. He's the one saying, say whatever the fuck you want. So now conservatives have become Democrats. So I don't think I've changed. I just like the dudes that get pussy and say whatever they want. So it's you want me to be a Democrat again? Get some pussy. Tell me to say whatever I want. I'm there.
Trump is cool because he gets except he had to grab it forcefully. Let's remember that. And this is pretty consistent with the way that people view presidents in general, which is actually so strange to me, but I think this is a really great representation of the patriarchy that we live in. But after Bill Clinton's entire Monica Lewinsky scandal, even though he did resign, his approval rating still went up afterwards. And this notion that Trump gets a lot of women, that he sleeps around, that he's powerful, that he's tough, that he's a great businessman, really contributes to this picture of the ultimate patriarch. Now, obviously, that's not the way that I view him, but all those things combined allegedly make these men think that Trump is super cool. And like Schultz said, Democrats used to be cool, but now they are not. Now, obviously, we shouldn't be voting for president based on who we think is cool, but Americans have always been like this. I always think back to the 1960 presidential election cycle where Nixon debated JFK, and people who listened to this very specific debate on radio thought Nixon had won the debate, but people who watched it on TV, because this was the first ever live televised debate ever, people thought JFK had won because he was more attractive. And honestly, thank God for that, because what happened to attractive people in politics, I'm still waiting. But if that clip showed me anything, it's that people want to feel good about the kind of person that they're voting for, and that people also want to reinforce this self-concept that we all must have, that we're actually cool and we're actually different. And I think that's why you see this rise of like enlightened centrism, or like, oh, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent, because people really want to be different for some reason, and I blame the culture wars of the 2010s. But when I think about the last coolest politician to exist, I literally think of Obama. He was really cool.
Yeah, the other guy said, but I tell you what, you won't see me moving to no African jungle anytime soon. Or some goddamn desert somewhere sitting on a carpet with a bunch of Arabs. No, sir. And you won't see me stop eating no ribs either. Gotta have them ribs. And pussy too.
For one, he adopted the use of the internet, which was huge in 2008. And you see the same thing with politicians now using TikTok or going on podcasts. And I think one of the greatest examples of this is Zobran and all of the different TikTok interviews and just TikToks he did with super popular creators that live in New York. And this made him not only come off as relatable, but also just as a genuinely cool guy. And I think that's why he gets compared to Obama specifically, for the way that he acts, for the vibe that that he brings and for what he's doing to the Democratic Party and to politics in general. And I honestly find this kind of funny because there are a lot of people within the Democratic Party who have been trying to emulate Obama, like Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, Cory Booker. And there are two things that they have in common. For one, they try and copy Obama's cadence in the way that they speak, and also they all have a bunch of failed Democratic presidential campaigns. But the thing about curating a vibe is that you can't replicate it. You have to create it. It has to come from within you, and it has to be a driver of culture for it to be significant. If we think about Trump's campaign, Make America Great Again became a movement. You see a red hat, you see a person talking about ivermectin or conspiracy theories, and you go, oh, that must be a Trump voter. You see someone with tan, wrinkled skin, you see an RFK Jr. looking figure, and you go, oh yeah, that's a Trump voter. And I think the reason why Democrats have a problem is because you have people like Beto or Pete trying to emulate Obama, but don't necessarily have the swagger that he carried within himself. And because they lack so much authenticity and are very obviously trying to replicate someone else, it creates this sort of dissonance with their character because Obama was also a representation of something new within this country. Just him being a black man winning as president was radical. But you have these white people who are copying a black person and also just standing for nothing. Obama brought hope, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about Beto other than he's from Texas. The only people in the Democratic Party who I believe are actually drivers of culture and who actually have an authentic and cool vibe are Bernie Sanders with the entire Bernie Bro movement, and then also AOC, who is the face of the squad. Now, we do have Zoran, but we'll see how far he can actually make it. But one thing that these people have in common is that they're also anti-establishment figures. And even when Obama was running for president, he positioned himself as this anti-establishment candidate. And that's why people wanted to vote for him, because he was a representation of hope. He was a representation of change and progress and forward movement. Trump is honestly kind of the same way, even though he is just like repackaged patriarchy and capitalism and white supremacy. He's positioned himself as this far-right revolutionary figure. And working people genuinely believe that he's in office for them. They actually think that he is a populist who's going to make their lives better economically. Now, that's obviously not the case, but when he first ran in 2016, he acted like he was also going to fight against the establishment by claiming he wanted to drain the swamp. And like I said before, he's developed his own culture. Compare this to Kamala Harris and her campaign, where she kind of rode the wave of Brat Summer and also rode the wave of a meme and kind of just copied memes that were going around online but never really developed any of her own. She also didn't really stand for anything. At least Trump pretends that he's fighting against the status quo while simultaneously making life better for the rich and making life worse for the poor. And so if Democrats want to have a vibe, like an actual vibe and not just like a bland, boring one, they need to be representative of actual change. They need to be anti-establishment, and they need to actually represent people. Now, obviously this is common sense, but it's not something that we're seeing, and they're not really fighting too hard against the Trump administration. They need to lean more into democratic socialism, more into progressivism, more into economic populism, and they need to show us that they are authentically here for us as working people, and that they're going to fight for a better life for all of us. They need to be more representative of hope, of change, of something new, of something different, and prove to us that they are not here for corporations or for Wall Street or for billionaires, but that they're here for us. Anyway, those are just my opinions. Thank you so much if you watched all the way through. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and also subscribe to my Substack down below, which is where I write satirical articles, which I personally think are hilarious. Anyway, thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye!
Gotta have them ribs. And pussy too.
Out there, president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Botox keeps you young, fillers keeps you plump.
Amir missed me.
The dogs.
No, get those lights off.
I'm here to introduce
a fucking bitch.
Claro.
It's the real deal.
Paid $9,000 for an autograph.
Wakanda forever.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not